You need to understand this now before the next moment passes. What I have done for you is irreversible. This isn't just a comforting phrase or symbolic act. I have taken your name and etched it in a place so holy, so divine, so far beyond the reach of human error or demonic interference, that nothing on earth or in hell can tamper with it. I did not pencil your identity into a fragile document of man's approval. I engraved it into the eternal foundation of my kingdom with authority and finality. This is not based on your feelings, your failures, or your fears. It is anchored in my unchanging love and sealed by the blood I poured for you. You've been wondering if you're still included, if you still matter, if I still see you, and I need you to hear this with urgency. You have not been removed. You have not been replaced. And you are not forgotten. Your name, your real name, the one I whispered before you were born, is written in the records of redemption, wrapped in light, guarded by angels, and continually spoken in my presence. Even when you tried to disqualify yourself, even when others tried to rename you with pain and shame, I preserved what I wrote. It's not fragile ink, it's eternal fire. And I want you to feel the weight of this. Because I am not speaking to encourage you for a day, I'm calling you into your identity for the rest of your life. There's something coming, and you need to know where your name stands before it arrives. This is me pulling you out of doubt, out of delay, out of confusion, because if you don't recognize what I've written, you'll walk away from what's being handed to you. So listen to me closely. Your name is not just on my lips, it is carved into heaven's agenda, protected with divine jealousy, and tied to promises that are about to become visible. Don't waste another second wondering if you belong, because the scroll has already been opened, and your name is glowing. And now, as you stand on the edge of wondering if anything you carried privately even mattered, let me pull back the veil and show you that not one tear slipped through unnoticed. You may have thought you were whispering into empty space, collapsing behind closed doors with no one aware, but the courts of heaven recorded it all in real time. Your silent nights were echoed in eternity. Every moment you wept without words, every hour you fought battles no one knew existed, every disappointment you swallowed just to keep going, it was all seen, counted, and honored. I did not require your volume to validate your pain. I required your endurance to shape what is about to break open. The agony that tried to mute you only amplified your name in my presence. While others judged the outside, I heard the depth of your soul's cry. I marked those moments as sacred, and now the answers you thought were delayed are moving toward you with divine speed. I didn't respond when you expected, because I was preparing something beyond what your language could have requested. I let it linger, not to neglect you, but to give what's coming the weight it deserves. Your secret suffering has reached the season of visible vindication. This is not just restoration, this is recognition from realms beyond time. The scroll that bears your name is no longer sealed in silence. It has been presented before my throne, and I have issued a divine command. It is time. That agony you thought was wasted has now become the activation point of your calling. Nothing you endured is empty. The atmosphere is shifting to make room for what was birthed in pain but now wrapped in purpose. And make no mistake, heaven never forgets loyalty in private. What you chose not to say, the way you chose to trust me even when it didn't make sense, the way you carried the weight when others added more to your back instead of helping lift it, I saw all of it. I know the cost. I know the strength it took to stay quiet when accused, to stay faithful when abandoned, to believe when nothing looked believable. And now, the one who heard the cries the world ignored is about to speak on your behalf. This moment has been announced in heaven, and your name is being called in honor, not in shame. What you've whispered in pain is about to be shouted in victory. Open your heart, because this unveiling was prepared with your name already attached, and the delay is breaking right now. What was meant to bury you has become the very ground I'm building your breakthrough on, and the darkness that tried to stain your identity will now testify of how I preserve you when you didn't even know what was happening behind the veil. I saw every attempt hell made to stain your worth, to redefine who you are by wrapping you in the garments of guilt and false accusation. There were moments you nearly accepted the lie that somehow your story had become too broken to repair, too soiled to ever be recognized again. But I didn't give permission for your name to be written in shame. I covered it in the light of my holiness. While the enemy moved in shadows, whispering confusion into your ears and trying to distort the image of who I created you to be, I was setting apart your name with my seal that cannot be forged, replaced, or revoked. And I need you to understand this clearly and urgently. No label from man, no weapon from hell, no opinion born out of jealousy or ignorance has the authority to overwrite what I've declared. My covering doesn't fade when your emotions falter. It remains. My glory doesn't withdraw when others point fingers. It surrounds. I chose you long before shame was introduced, and I have kept you in the middle of it all, not because you were perfect, but because I saw who you are beneath the rubble. The very things that were designed to humiliate you are about to become evidence of my restoring hand. Every time they mocked your name, I was rewriting the narrative with fire and truth. The world may have tried to attach your worth to your mistakes, but I've called you by your destiny. The fingerprints of accusation have no power over what I've marked. You are not defined by what you've been through. You are now identified by what you carry, and what you carry is holy. My spirit did not abandon you in the mess. It hovered and protected and preserved. And now the robe of glory I've placed upon your shoulders is being seen, not in pride, but in purity, because you've walked through the fire, and still you kept turning back to me. That's why I'm calling your name again, not as a reminder of pain, but as an announcement of emergence. You've been in hiding, but not from me, from the premature voices who weren't ready to see the real you emerge. But I say this now with finality: what the enemy labeled unusable, I now declare anointed. You are not what trying to break you. You are who I have called, clothed, and confirmed for such a time as this. Walk forward not in hesitation, but in the confidence that your name is not tarnished, it is glorified in my presence. There is a reason why things didn't happen when you begged for them to. There is a divine intention behind every moment you thought was wasted, every door that didn't open, every opportunity that seemed to vanish right before your eyes. I was not denying you. I was preparing the timing so that when the unveiling came, it wouldn't just be another moment, but a movement marked by your name. I do nothing without purpose, and I certainly don't allow delay without using it as design. I stretch time not to frustrate you, but to refine what would be released. The version of you that exists right now, stronger, deeper, wiser, could only have been formed through seasons of seemingly unanswered cries. While you wondered if I was being silent, I was actually speaking to your future, commanding it to wait for your arrival. What you saw as stillness, I saw as sacred formation. Every unanswered door was my act of mercy, because premature access would have cost you more than it blessed you. I needed you to become unshakable. I needed you to stop measuring yourself by speed and begin anchoring yourself in alignment. The delay wasn't a punishment, it was the training ground that secured your readiness. And now, the place your name is written into has finally reached maturity. The scroll is no longer hidden. The instruction has been released. The season has changed. What was held back is now being handed forward, not to a random recipient, but to you, the one who waited without walking away. You passed the test of delay, not by perfection, but by persistence. Even when you questioned me, you didn't quit. Even when you were discouraged, you didn't disconnect. And I recorded every moment of that faith, every flicker of trust when your strength was failing. Heaven takes note of what you do in the in-between. And now, because you trusted me when nothing made sense, I am trusting you with what will carry weight. Your assignment is not delayed, it is right on time. And that name I wrote before the world even knew your face is about to echo louder than every disappointment that tried to make you give up. Don't look at others' timelines. Look at the moment I'm presenting you now. Because what's being handed to you wasn't stolen, it was reserved. What's being shown to you wasn't lost, it was being safeguarded. And now, it begins not rushed, not forced, but right on schedule. I delayed what would have destroyed you so I could deliver what would define you. You must understand how significant this moment is. This isn't just another day. This is the turning point where what was hidden becomes active, where the invisible starts to materialize, where the promises I stored up are released into motion. For so long, the script of your life hath been unfolding behind the scenes. What others couldn't see, I was scripting with detail. The scroll that bears your name is not symbolic, it is sacred. It contains the blueprint of what I have authored specifically for you. Instructions, breakthroughs, encounters, assignments, and provisions that have been sealed in my timing. And now I have broken the seal not by accident, not by chance, but by divine command, because everything I've written is now set to unfold without delay. The process that once seemed stuck is shifting. The parts of your purpose that looked paused are now accelerating. This is not the season for confusion or hesitation. This is the moment to receive and step forward. I have opened what once was reserved. The scroll has been accessed by heaven's authority, and no power of darkness can shut what I have released. This is your activation, not by your strength but by my spirit. What you couldn't force into being, I'm now calling into reality. The name written in my plan is now being revealed with clarity. Your identity is no longer concealed, and your path is no longer clouded. Do not let past disappointments cause you to miss what I'm opening. The time of watching others walk into their moment while you remained in waiting has ended. This is yours. What I wrote with my own hand, what I encoded with vision and promise, what I secured beyond corruption, I am now revealing. And as this scroll opens, don't be surprised when sudden shifts begin to overtake your atmosphere. Favor will begin to attach to you with no human explanation. Doors that seemed permanently sealed will respond to your approach. People you never expected to align with your journey will be drawn to you by divine assignment. This isn't random. It's win. You are not entering by chance. You are walking into a moment that has your name documented on it. And I am not asking you to be perfect to receive it. I'm asking you to be available, because what's being unveiled is greater than what you imagined and bigger than what you planned for. The scroll is open. The seal is broken. The name that was protected is now being announced. It ready to move, because manifestation doesn't wait, it flows when heaven declares the time has come. And right now, the time is yours. I did not rush this unveiling because sacred things are never thrown into chaos, they are released into order. And though you longed to see what I was doing, though your heart cried out for answers, though your spirit wrestled in places too deep for language, I held it back not to punish you but to prepare you. What was concealed wasn't forgotten. It was being refined, shielded from interference and distraction, kept out of reach from voices that would have spoken against it too soon. I needed you to be in the right place within your heart, with the strength that only waiting can birth, with the discernment that only wilderness can produce. And now, that moment has arrived, the one I whispered about in the spirit realm long before you could comprehend it. You are standing in the hour where what was once wrapped in mystery begins to make sense. It's not just a season change, it's a spiritual unveiling, and I want you to feel the urgency of this. I am exposing to you what I kept hidden from the enemy's reach, what I kept veiled from people who would not understand your assignment, what I protected even from your own impatience. You are now ready to carry what once would have crushed you. You are now mature enough to steward what once would have overwhelmed you. And I need you to respond, not with fear, but with full awareness that I chose this precise time because it aligns with more than just your desire, it aligns with eternal orchestration. There are things beginning to move around you that may feel unfamiliar at first. People will start showing up in your path carrying information, resources, and opportunities that your mind didn't even know how to pray for. It will seem like things are coming from all directions, but it's not random, it's a divine ripple, a result of the hidden things now being released into motion. I have waited for this, because there are assignments attached to your obedience in this moment, assignments that were delayed until now because the spiritual atmosphere had to be cleansed, your heart had to be trained, and your focus had to be singular. That is why some friendships faded. That is why some paths suddenly closed. That is why certain voices went silent. They went lusted with positioning. And now, what was veiled is being made visible. You won't have to force anything. What is yours will begin to reveal itself to you naturally, not because it suddenly appeared, but because I'm removing the scales that kept it hidden. And as I do, I want you to walk carefully, not fearfully, but intentionally, because revelation comes with responsibility. What I am showing you is not just for inspiration. It is for instruction. I will begin to highlight people, decisions, and places with precision, and you will know by the peace that comes with my direction. You won't be confused, because I'm clearing the clutter that tried to cloud your clarity. You'll know what's for you not by how it flatters you, but by how it aligns with what I've kept sealed until now. I've waited, beloved, because I love you too deeply to expose your promise before its appointed hour. I've waited because what I wrote about you deserves to emerge in fullness, not fragments. And this right here is that fullness beginning to break open. So don't hold back. Don't shrink into the shadows of former seasons. What was once too great for you to carry, I am now placing in your hands. Not in pieces, but in power. The timing is divine. The unveiling is now. While you were scanning the horizon for some proof that I remembered you, I was speaking your name in places you couldn't see, moving in dimensions you weren't yet aware of, dispatching angels to prepare what would only make sense later. You equated my silence with absence, but that couldn't be further from the truth. I wasn't ignoring you. I was interceding for you. I didn't leave your side for even a breath. I didn't pause my care or shift my attention elsewhere. Your name was continually before me, carried like a burning light across the chambers of heaven, repeated with passion in every petition I made on your behalf. I know the moments when it felt like the world moved on without you, when your prayers echoed back at you with no sign of reply, when you quietly asked yourself if I even still knew your name. But I need you to hear this urgently. What felt like being overlooked was actually a holy process of being positioned. I never removed my gaze. Even when the crowd didn't call for you, I was whispering to your heart, building in you what applause could never sustain. There were days you woke up feeling invisible, unworthy, too broken to be remembered, and yet your name never lost its place in my mouth. I spoke it in strategy meetings of the Spirit, declaring protection, timing, and provision over you when you weren't even aware. I murmured it in moments when danger tried to draw near, shielding you from things you would never know you were spared from. Your name didn't just survive my silence, it flourished in my keeping. What I know about you goes deeper than any public version of your life. I know the intricacies of your soul, the depth of your longing, the sincerity of your worship when no one was watching. That's why I didn't allow your name to be handled carelessly. I kept it sacred. I protected it from being defined by temporary situations. I refused to let you be labeled by failure or forgotten in transition. And now, in this hour, I am not just remembering you, I am revealing what has always been true, that I never let go. My love is not momentary, and my attention is not distracted. While others moved on, I was standing watch. While others let go, I held on. And as things begin to open, as the path unfolds, as my plan begins to manifest before your eyes, know that this was never the result of you finally being noticed. This was always about the divine script reaching its appointed line, the moment when what I've always known about you becomes visible to the world. This is not the start of your story, it's the unveiling of what has already been written in love, in purpose, and in power. Your name was never lost in the crowd. It was always the focus of heaven's gaze. You weren't preserved by accident. It was not your strength, your planning, or your resilience that kept you standing when everything around you was falling apart. It was because I saw your name etched into an assignment that has yet to be fulfilled, and I refused to let the storm swallow a soul that still carries an unfinished instruction. There were forces that came against you with the full intention to destroy, not to discourage, but to eliminate. And though it felt like you were barely surviving, every moment you stayed afloat wasn't survival, it was strategy. You were sustained because I intervened. I stepped in with my authority and declared that this one cannot be taken. This one is marked. This one is protected, not because of what they've done, but because of what I've already spoken. The winds raged, the waters rose, and you wondered why it was all so intense, because the storm knew your name, too. It recognized the power you carried, even when you didn't. It tried to silence what was meant to be a sound in this generation. It tried to drown the very vessel I intend to use. And you must realize now, if the enemy knew how close you were to walking into your fullness, he would have tried even harder. But my hand blocked every scheme. My presence guarded you when you were unaware. When you thought you were being ignored, I was intercepting the attack. When you felt abandoned, I was issuing a restraining order in the spirit realm that said, "Not yet. Not this one. They are not finished." You felt like you were breaking apart, but in reality, you were being reinforced from the inside out. Your name is not a random sequence of letters to me. It carries purpose, legacy, and intention. And I knew that if I allowed that storm to win, the impact meant for generations through you would have been cut off. That's why I stood between you and the wave. That's why I let you bend but not break. And even though others couldn't see what was holding you up, even though you had no words to describe how you were still breathing when hope had collapsed, you made it here because my plan demanded it. A storm didn't get to finish what it started. I interrupted it because I still have more to unfold through you. You are not a leftover survivor, you are a preserved carrier of something holy. That moment when you thought it was all over was actually the turning point where my hand grabbed tighter. And now, looking back, you can see it more clearly. The moments that should have ended you were the exact places I planted my mercy. I kept you when giving up seemed easier. I restored what looked unsalvageable. Because your name, yes, your exact name is still aligned with a divine appointment. What I wrote about you has not expired. You weren't allowed to be taken out because the mission still breathes. And now that you've crossed through what tried to sink you, you're about to walk into what couldn't be stopped. Not because of your strength, but because I refused to cancel what carries my signature. The storm wasn't your end, it was your witness. And now the promise begins to rise. You must hear this now, because the time for quiet loss is over. What was unjustly taken, what slipped through your hands while you wept in confusion, what you were forced to release while your heart still bled from the wound, is not gone forever. I saw the theft. I recorded the moment your spirit broke when the very thing you cherished was ripped away. And though you were told to move on, though you tried to convince yourself it wasn't meant for you, I never let it vanish into nothing. I stored it. I preserved the essence of it in my presence, not as a vague memory, but as a living promise still connected to your identity. And now, as this divine hour unfolds, I am issuing a release not of replacement, but of restoration. You will not receive a generic blessing or a second-hand version of what you once carried. And oh, what's coming is exact, tailored, intentional. It is traced with the imprint of who you are and stamped with the authority of my justice. This is not karma. This is not coincidence. This is reparation from heaven's court. You may have believed the moment past that what slipped away could never return, but I am the God who redeems what others thought was destroyed. I have traced every loss to your name, every relationship that broke when you were still holding on, every dream that collapsed before it could become real, every opportunity that was stolen by envy, betrayal, or confusion. I saw it. I heard the cries no one acknowledged. I noticed how you swallowed grief quietly while pretending to be strong. And now, in this hour of return, I am calling forth what was held back. The compensation will not just be equal, it will carry the weight of multiplied grace. But more than the quantity, it is the accuracy that matters. What I'm bringing back into your hands will recognize you. It will fit where you are now, not where you used to be. Because I didn't just keep the promise, I've been maturing it while I was maturing you. And here's what's critical. It won't go to another. No matter how many others stepped in, no matter how many tried to claim what had your fingerprints on it, I didn't authorize the transfer. What I preserved wasn't just for anyone it was linked by name to you. I never erased the label. And when I move, I do so with precision. Get ready, because things that you gave up on are going to show up again, not in confusion, but with clarity. Not in fragments, but in fullness. They will find you not because you were chasing them, but because they were always meant to come back when the time aligned with your readiness. This is not an echo of what you had, it is a resurrection of what I protected. And when it arrives, you will know it wasn't luck, or manipulation, or human strategy. You'll know it was heaven keeping its word. You will recognize the weight of something that waited for you. And others may not understand it, but that's because they didn't witness what you lost in silence. But I did. And I've waited for the perfect moment to make it right, not to erase the past, but to redeem it. The return is in motion, and your name is on it. Prepare to receive what's been traveling through time to meet you. The pressure wasn't random. The warfare wasn't coincidental. The moment you felt everything tightening around your spirit, the very moment the weight of unseen heaviness began pressing against your thoughts, your energy, your peace, it was not because you were failing. It was because something was breaking through. You were on the verge of a release that would shift not only your direction but the atmosphere around you. And when the enemy discerned that you were nearing the fulfillment of something I had already written, he panicked. He tried to distract, to destabilize, to isolate you, because what I have recorded about you in heaven began stirring for expression on earth. And when my word starts to move, hell responds violently. What many called coincidence was actually confirmation of transition. You were walking closer to the line where what I had spoken in secret would begin to manifest in public. The enemy always attacks what he fears. He isn't after the version of you that's tired, he's after the version of you that's rising. And when the writing I inscribed with fire on the scroll bearing your name started to activate, when the instructions began to unfold in the spiritual realm, the pressure mounted to convince you to retreat. But what you didn't see then is what I'm showing you now. The battle was never meant to crush you. It was meant to reveal what you carry. Every arrow thrown was in response to something eternal rising from within you. The timing of your warfare aligned precisely with the opening of the scroll. That's why it felt sudden. That's why you couldn't explain why you were under fire from every side. But here's what must be understood. The enemy cannot stop what I've written. He can only try to distract you before it speaks. And my word over your life is not dormant. It is living, breathing, vibrating with purpose. It is reaching maturity. I wrote it with intention, and when my word matures, it must speak. It must move. It must manifest. The pressure around you was a sign that the page had turned. You didn't just endure hardship, you walked through a holy threshold, and the sound of that shift startled the enemy camp. But even his panic couldn't undo what I've sealed. The declarations about your identity are louder than the whispers of opposition. And though it seemed like everything was trying to convince you to stop, to hide, to shut down, I was in the process of bringing you to the exact moment where my word would do what it was always meant to: speak and not return void. There's a vibration in the spirit now, and your name is resonating within it. Not only are you about to hear it, you're about to become it. You are about to embody what I have been preparing since the beginning. That's why the warfare peaked. That's why things felt like they were spinning beyond your control. It was not the end, it was the sound of fulfillment approaching. And now, no demon in hell, no human opinion, no lie spoken against you can silence what is coming from my mouth concerning you. My voice is louder. My decree is final. What I wrote about you is about to echo across every area that once felt empty. And when it does, the same places where you were afflicted will become the very platforms where my promises are fulfilled through you. The attack increased because the time of unveiling is here. And the word I've spoken over you, crafted by my spirit, anchored in my love, is rising now. It will not stay silent. There is a shift in the atmosphere that demands your attention, not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. For too long, you have walked through quiet places, carrying the weight of promises no one else understood, speaking only in whispers because your voice felt unheard. You watched others be called, lifted, acknowledged, while your own journey unfolded in stillness, hidden behind walls of delay and waiting. But that silence, though painful, was not punishment, it was a pause of preparation. And now, that pause is being lifted. The season that kept your name quiet is breaking. I am not just speaking into your spirit, I am speaking to your identity. I am calling you not generally, not broadly, but personally. You are not being summoned as part of a crowd. You are being called out by name, because this moment was written for you. I know what you've endured behind closed doors. I know the internal wars that never reached the ears of others. And I am telling you, with divine urgency, that your days of hiding are over. The isolation that once felt endless has come to its final chapter, and now the sound of my voice is locating you. I'm calling you forth not because you begged for attention, but because your obedience in silence has reached fulfillment. This is not a coincidence. This is a divine encounter, lined with the scroll I wrote before the world was formed. Your name is not being spoken casually, it is being spoken with authority. With it comes assignment. With it comes clarity. With it comes unveiling. Everything I am calling forth in you now was planted in the seasons when no one saw your sacrifice. You are not being recognized because of popularity, you are being called because of purpose. And I need you to understand this. The silence didn't mean I was far, it meant I was closer than you could comprehend, forming what noise would have disrupted. I needed you to be free of external validation so that when I called, you would respond from spirit, not from pressure. You didn't miss your window, you were being molded for it. And now that the molding is complete, the silence is breaking under the weight of my summons. His calling will not sound like the world's applause. It will sound like peace. It will feel like movement. You'll begin to notice things shifting, conversations opening, resources appearing, opportunities emerging, and you'll know they aren't man-made. They're heaven-timed. This calling isn't just verbal, it's transformational. You're not just being told to come forth. You're being empowered to step into the place that was made for you. There will be no confusion, no striving, no competition, because what I have for you is uniquely yours. No other voice will be able to take your place. No substitute will fit where your name has already been engraved. This is not a return to what you once knew, this is the beginning of what you were always meant to walk in. The silence that once felt suffocating is giving way to a divine sound of release. What I am calling you into now requires your full focus, your whole heart, and your readiness to leave behind the shadows of the past. You are no longer invisible. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer overlooked. You are being summoned with intention. This is not a general invitation. This is your name being spoken by the one who never forgot it. I am calling you forward because the season that held your voice captive has ended. It is time to answer. You may have assumed, because of how long it's taken, that what was spoken over your life had faded, become irrelevant, expired like an old promise buried under years of disappointment. But I need you to know with full certainty, not a single word concerning you has been shelved or forgotten. The scroll that bears your name hasn't been collecting dust in some silent archive, it's been alive in my presence, pulsing with power, vibrating with fulfillment, and guarded by my authority. Every moment you thought was meaningless, every step you believed was wasted, every pause that felt like abandonment was in fact connected to a living plan still in motion. I have not changed my mind about you. I did not alter the vision. I did not reroute the calling. While you tried to fit yourself into smaller roles, into places that made sense to others, I was safeguarding the full version of what I originally declared over you. And that scroll, yes, the one written long before you were born, has not stopped unfolding. It has moved with every breath you've taken, responding to your obedience, adapting around your growth, expanding with each surrender. You may not see it, but it's been active behind the veil, instructing angelic movements, commanding divine intersections, aligning what seemed unconnected. Every delay didn't freeze the scroll, it added to its richness. Every time you stayed faithful when no one clapped, when no one called your name, when your efforts felt invisible, that added weight to the next section of your assignment. You were being written into something greater while you stood in what seemed like silence. But now the page is turning. And this next part isn't vague, it's intentional. What I am about to release will carry visible confirmation that I've been working all along. Expect divine patterns to begin forming where there was once only confusion. Expect conversations to spark that you didn't initiate. Expect old connections to be replaced with purposed ones. This is not randomness, this is the scroll coming to life. You are not walking into an accident. You're stepping into something that has been living in my presence and waiting for the exact moment when your maturity matched its magnitude. There are pieces you tried to abandon that I kept secure because I knew they would make sense in this chapter. And now that chapter is being read aloud in the spiritual realm. Your name is not passive, it is resonating. It is being whispered in meetings you didn't know were happening. It is being carried by messengers on assignment. Even the winds are beginning to obey the words I've attached to your life. The scroll is not waiting, it is speaking. And it is about to find expression through you in ways that will silence doubt and shake the systems that thought you were done. I never pause your story, I only pause your view of it. But I've been moving the entire time. And now, as this season breaks open, you will see how alive my word has always been. You're not stepping into something new. You're stepping into something eternal, something that's been breathing, waiting, burning with purpose. It's time for the living scroll to be seen. It's time for what was written to become real. And your name, beloved, is at the center of it. What they missed in you, I have memorized. While others scanned the surface and misjudged your worth, I was gazing at the depths of what I placed inside you long before anyone knew your story. Their inability to recognize your value never changed your identity to me. The ones who walked past you, who minimized your voice, who saw only fragments of your potential, I never once borrowed their opinion to define what I wrote about you. They didn't see you because they weren't assigned to carry the weight of your calling. They weren't equipped to handle the complexity of your anointing. But I saw you in full, even when your own reflection started to fade beneath the disappointment. I knew exactly what I was doing when I allowed certain doors to stay shut and specific voices to grow distant. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Because while they were counting you out, I was counting the cost of what your obedience would unlock. You were never invisible to me. In fact, you were the focus of my craftsmanship. I etched your name not only in heaven but into moments you haven't even lived yet. I encoded your presence into spaces that don't know they're waiting for you. They couldn't perceive you because you weren't sent to fit their pattern, you were created to break it. You were made to carry a unique sound, a different weight, a kind of glory that cannot be appreciated by those seeking only the familiar. I didn't design you to be understood by everyone. I designed you to be seen by me. And I need you to hear this clearly. Your value was never diminished by their blindness. What they overlooked, I was watching unfold in perfect order. Even when you doubted your own ability to keep going, I was sustaining the name I gave you, carrying it through storms, lifting it through tears, preserving it when shame tried to stain it. I never turned away. I never disengaged. I remained. I remained the one who understood why your silence was sacred, why your struggle was shaping something eternal, why your uniqueness wasn't a flaw but a divine signature. You are not a mistake in motion, you are a masterpiece in progress. And as I bring you into this new unfolding, I want you to stop measuring your worth by who failed to notice you. I want you to stop waiting for permission from those who were never assigned to confirm you. What I see in you is not faded, it has grown. The overlooked season didn't waste you, it refined your hearing. It taught you how to recognize my whisper in a world full of noise. It taught you how to walk when no one was clapping, how to believe when no one was watching. And now, I'm calling you into a space where recognition isn't about popularity, it's about divine placement. I know your name in its entirety. I know the meaning of every syllable, every letter, every nuance of who you are. And I have written it into a purpose that cannot be replicated. You were never forgotten, not for one heartbeat, not for one breath. You were hidden in plain sight, kept for a moment such as this. And now, what I've guarded is about to be revealed, not to impress the people who overlooked you, but to glorify the one who never stopped seeing you. This is your unveiling, not through human validation, but by divine declaration. I have always known you. He didn't come after you because you were weak, he came because you were dangerous to the darkness. The enemy saw what you didn't yet recognize in yourself, potential so powerful it threatened the plans he had hoped to carry out in your bloodline. From the moment your destiny began to unfold, he launched an assault not on your circumstances alone, but on your identity. His goal was never just to delay you, it was to distort your understanding of who you truly are. If he could confuse your perception of yourself, he could cause you to shrink from the space you were born to walk in. He didn't need to remove the call, he just needed to convince you to deny it. That's why the attacks were personal. That's why the wounds went deeper than words. That's why you questioned whether you mattered at all. Because the enemy wasn't guessing, he was reacting. He saw your name etched into heavenly records and he panicked. He couldn't erase what I had written, so he tried to cover it in lies. He tried to convince you that you were forgotten, unqualified, broken beyond use. And every time you believed even a piece of those lies, he gained ground, not because my plan changed, but because your confidence began to fade. But even in that, I was still holding the truth of who you were. I never let your real name leave my sight. When the enemy threw labels at you, failure, unwanted, inadequate, I spoke your true name louder in the spirit. I called you redeemed. I called you chosen. I called you necessary. And while he tried to bury you under false definitions, I was carving the truth deeper into your soul. The intensity of the warfare around your mind was evidence of how afraid the enemy is of you stepping fully into alignment. He knows that once you realize who you really are, not who life tried to make you, not who pain shaped you into, not who others assumed you'd be, but the version I designed before time, everything shifts. Your identity holds authority. Your name holds weight in places you've yet to walk into. And that is why the opposition hath been relentless. But I want you to see this clearly. If the enemy fought you that hard, it means your name terrifies him. You are not insignificant. You are not just trying to make it through. You are a living threat to systems of darkness that have ruled for generations. And the reason your battles have felt so strategic is because your identity was the target. But I've come to remind you what I called you before you were shaped by this world. Before trauma named you. Before disappointment labeled you. Before rejection painted over your confidence. I called you my own. I assigned you purpose. I gave you access. And now, as you rise from the confusion of identity theft, know this. Every scheme designed to break you will now serve as proof that you are exactly who I said you were. The enemy doesn't fight the Unveiling. He fights the marked. And you, beloved, are undeniably marked. Not just for survival, but for divine disruption. Your name is still alive. Your authority is still valid. Your voice still matters. I am reclaiming what fear tried to silence. I am restoring what insecurity attempted to bury. I am confirming what I never revoked. You are not the sum of your battles, you are the reason they raged. Because the enemy saw your scroll and trembled. Why he failed? Because you're still here. And now, the identity he tried to kill is awakening, and nothing can stop what I am about to do through the real you. There's a reason I want you to walk in peace no matter what tries to rise against you, because your name is anchored in a realm where no thief has access, no accuser has jurisdiction, and no darkness has dominion. You see, what I wrote about you didn't get penned in fragile dust, it was etched into eternity. Long before you encountered heartbreak, long before pain tried to steal your confidence, long before voices tried to define your future by your failures, I took your name and sealed it inside a record that doesn't age, doesn't weaken, and cannot be erased. The book of life is not symbolic, it's real, sacred, and it carries irreversible truth. I did not write your name there lightly. I didn't do it out of impulse or as a reaction to your good behavior. I did it because I knew exactly who you were, even before you became aware of yourself. I knew the battles you'd face, the seasons you'd stumble, the times you'd question everything. And still, I chose to preserve your name in the highest authority of heaven's domain. There is nothing the enemy can do to touch that inscription. He may attack your mind, surround you with chaos, and attempt to confuse your purpose, but he cannot reach where I've written you. I placed your name beyond the reach of corruption, beyond the reach of time, beyond the reach of manipulation. That's why when you felt like everything was falling apart, something inside still held firm. That was me. That was the covenant I made when I wrote your name, not with fading ink, but with blood. Not with uncertainty, but with finality. The enemy wants you to think it can all be lost in a moment. But what I've sealed is not fragile. What I've decreed is not unstable. Your name rests in a living record that testifies daily before my throne, not of your perfection, but of my promise. And every time the enemy tries to bring up your past, the book of life proclaims your future. Every time shame whispers you've gone too far, that holy page shouts that you've already been redeemed. You are not held together by your performance, you are held in place by my commitment. That's why you keep surviving what was meant to break you. That's why hope keeps flickering, even in the middle of the pressure. Because you've been named in a realm that cannot be corrupted. And now I want you to live like someone whose name is known in heaven. Stop shrinking. Stop apologizing for being chosen. Stop wondering if you belong. I've made the decision already, and it was yes. Yes, you belong. Yes, you're included. Yes, you are secured. Not by the approval of others, but by the seal of my blood. When I said I would never leave you, I meant that I would guard everything attached to you, including your name. And when this world tries to define you by the noise of the now, remember where your identity truly resides. Not in their titles, not in your mistakes, not in your fears, but in my record, in my story, in the book that doesn't bend to opinion, time, or attack. And when all else shakes, when confusion surrounds, you can stand knowing this. Your name has already been spoken in heaven, and it still stands unshaken. The place I've written it cannot be invaded. That's where your confidence must live now, not in circumstances, but in the eternal truth of where your name is written. You've spent enough time waiting for a nod from people who were never authorized to validate your purpose. Their applause, their silence, their hesitation, none of it has the power to determine what I have already set in motion for your life. And yet I know how deeply you felt the ache of being unrecognized, the weight of having something burning inside you while others walked past as if you carried nothing. But that's because what I placed in you wasn't meant to be confirmed by a crowd, it was meant to be appointed by your Creator. I didn't choose you because others believed in you. I chose you because I saw what I had hidden within you. And this moment, this precise moment, is not about human permission. It's about divine release. I have set you apart in ways no earthly system can fully explain. You were not born to fit the mold. They didn't see you because they weren't supposed to. I kept you low on the radar while I raised you high in the spirit. You were not skipped, you were shielded. You were not overlooked, you were preserved. Because appointment doesn't require popularity, it requires preparation. And while they watched others ascend, I was building a foundation in you that would not crack under the weight of what I'm about to place on your shoulders. I have seen your surrender behind the scenes. I have watched you obey without a platform. I have listened to your yes when no one else was listening. And now, because of that quiet faithfulness, I am lifting you not as a reaction to others' opinions, but as the result of heaven's timeline aligning with your obedience. This appointment is not a promotion you earned, it's an unveiling of what was always yours. And yes, there will be people who question it. There will be those who don't understand how or why this door opened for you. Let them talk. You are not being elevated for their approval. You are being positioned for my purpose. I don't need a committee to confirm what I have already declared. I don't wait for consensus before I anoint someone. I operate by my spirit, not by social acceptance. So do not delay your response waiting for someone else to catch up to what I've shown you. I want you to move forward now, not with hesitation, but with holy clarity. I want you to walk like someone who knows they've been appointed, not hired. Like someone who understands that their role cannot be revoked by gossip or jealousy. This is not about being liked, it's about being aligned. I chose you before the foundation of the world, and I am confirming you in this hour. Not with fanfare, but with fire. Not with noise, but with undeniable favor. And those who tried to write you off will be the ones who witness the reality of your appointment. But don't let that be your focus. Keep your eyes on me. Keep your heart rooted in obedience. Keep your step steady, because the path you are about to walk wasn't paved by man, it was carved by my own hand. His appointment is holy. His calling is real. And no one can reverse what I have set into motion. You've waited long enough for their recognition, now receive my revelation. I didn't need them to say yes because I already did. And my yes is final. When it seemed like no one noticed your presence, when your voice felt drowned out in rooms full of noise, when your contributions were met with silence, when you gave your all and were still treated like you were background, I want you to know, I was watching with divine focus. Not one overlooked moment escaped me. Not one quiet sacrifice went unnoticed. While you stood in the shadows, wrestling with the ache of invisibility, I was weaving those very moments into the foundation of a calling that would one day require the kind of strength only forged through hiddenness. You felt invisible to them, but you were never invisible to me. In fact, I was closest to you when the crowd looked away. I leaned in when you whispered, when you prayed with tears instead of words, when you chose kindness instead of bitterness, even though no one applauded. And in those exact moments, I was engraving your name deeper, not just on a page in heaven, but into the very framework of your assignment. I was writing with permanence every time you chose to keep walking even when doors closed. I was carving your name into the next level of purpose every time you resisted the urge to give up. What the world couldn't see was me offering significance in silence. You were not being ignored, you were being intricately aligned. You thought invisibility meant insignificance, but I was using it to make your foundation unshakable. Because I will never release you into visibility that your character can't sustain. The hiding was holy. The silence was sacred. I didn't allow the recognition because I wasn't done building. But while others were counting numbers, I was counting the cost. And your cost has not been in vain. Every overlooked effort, every tearful night, every unnoticed yes, it has weight in my kingdom. And now, that weight is shifting into movement. The hidden pages are about to become public chapters. The private refining is about to become visible fruit. Not because you demanded to be seen, but because I've decided it's time. And when I bring you forward, it won't be through self-promotion, it will be through undeniable placement. No striving. No proving. No chasing. You will need to beg for attention. I'm drawing eyes to what I've built in you with my own hands. But don't misunderstand, this is not about the spotlight. This is about your scroll aligning with the season. You are not stepping into fame, you are stepping into fulfillment. Your name is not being seen for recognition's sake, it is being revealed because the hour requires what you carry. So lift your head. Don't let the memory of invisibility make you shrink from the stage I've set. Walk forward not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence that knows who authored this moment. The one who saw you when no one did is the same one now calling you forward. Your time in the shadows was never wasted, it was written. And now, what was hidden is about to speak. You looked at your missteps, your past failures, your moments of weakness, and you assumed they disqualified you from the future I spoke over you. But you misunderstood what I was doing. I wasn't throwing away the vision, I was shaping you to carry it with integrity. What you thought was a closed door was actually a closed classroom, where I taught you lessons pride would have ignored, where I allowed the fire not to burn you, but to purify what would one day hold the weight of your calling. You were never disqualified. You were being developed. I don't discard those I've chosen. I discipline them not to hurt them, but to ready them. I wasn't looking for perfection. I was drawing out resilience. When everything crumbled beneath you, I didn't walk away, I leaned closer. Because the oil I place on your life must flow from a vessel that's been tested. What you endured was not proof of rejection, it was the process of preparation. I allowed the hard things not to diminish you, but to deepen you. Because I never intended for you to carry shallow impact. I wrote your name into a story that would pierce the darkness, not just impress the crowd. That kind of story cannot be rushed. It cannot be coated in glitter and noise. It must be born in the wilderness, in the solitude, in the place where you questioned everything but still chose me. I know how many times you almost walked away. I know the guilt that tried to chain itself to your identity. I saw the tears that fell when you felt like you blew your only chance. But I also saw your repentance. I saw your return. I saw the way you still lifted your hands, even when your heart was broken. And that's what qualified you, not the absence of failure, but the presence of surrender. I don't erase people from my purpose because of their mistakes. I redeem them through it. And now, you're standing at the edge of something holy. What is coming has your name on it, not as a reward for perfection, but as a confirmation of completion. You have passed through fire. You have walked through breaking. You have tasted what it means to be emptied of your own strength. And because of that, you are finally ready not just to receive the promise, but to steward it with wisdom, humility, and grace. This appointment is not accidental. It is not forced. It is right on time. And you need to release the shame that still whispers you're not worthy. Because I say you are. I say your name still stands in the record of my intentions. I say your history didn't disqualify you, it gave depth to your voice. Now, when you speak, there will be authority behind your words, not because you've never fallen, but because you've gotten back up. And others will listen not because of your title, but because of your truth. I allowed you to be refined so that when this door opened, you would know what it cost, and you would never take it for granted. So don't hold back. Don't disqualify what I've qualified. Don't delay what I'm trying to activate. Your name is still on the inheritance. The promise is still alive, and I am still with you. Step into it not as someone hoping to be accepted, but as someone already chosen. You didn't lose your place, you just needed to be reshaped to fit it. And now that reshaping is complete, there is no need to measure your journey against someone else's path, because what I've authored concerning you is unlike anything I've written for anyone else. Comparison is a silent thief. It creeps in when you're most vulnerable, when you're waiting for visible results, when you're scrolling through someone else's breakthrough wondering if I've passed you by. But I haven't. I never skipped over your name. I never delayed your purpose because I was busy promoting someone else's. I don't operate in scarcity. I'm not restricted to one blessing at a time. Your portion has never been at risk of being handed to another. What I've crafted for your life has been uniquely assigned, and not even the most gifted or celebrated among others can replace what is yours. Your name is not written on a copy, it's embedded in an original. And the moment you stop looking sideways and start looking upward, you'll begin to see how beautifully different your unfolding is. The reason their door opened earlier wasn't because I love them more, it's because their assignment required a different route. What they carry and what you carry were never meant to compete, they were meant to complement in the kingdom. But your eyes have been fixed on their elevation while forgetting your foundation. You've been watching their race while ignoring your pace. And it's left you feeling behind in a race I never asked you to run in the first place. I didn't call you to chase their timeline, I called you to follow my leading. I didn't equip you to match their gift, I formed you to reveal my glory in a way they never could. And while you were questioning why your name wasn't called when theirs was, I was refining the details of a moment that could only be filled by you. Your name cannot be exchanged. It cannot be borrowed. What is yours is secured by my authority, not by your striving. So don't let envy poison what was meant to be celebrated. Don't let comparison kill the joy of walking in purpose at the pace I designed. Their success doesn't subtract from yours. Your miracle isn't a sign that you've been forgotten, it's proof that I'm still working in the lives of my children. And the same hand that lifted them is now reaching for you, not to pull you into what they have, but to deliver what is completely, powerfully, intentionally yours. I didn't write you into someone else's story. I wrote you into mine. And my story for you is detailed, alive, and in motion. It doesn't require the applause of others to be valid. It doesn't need the platform others stand on to be effective. All it requires is your willingness to walk in what I've assigned without shame, without jealousy, without needing to replicate what was never meant to be your template. You are not falling behind, you are being fitted for what fits you. What's on its way will match your name perfectly, because I never prepare a blessing and then search for someone to give it to. I create a person and tailor the fulfillment around them. And you, beloved, have a fulfillment that no one else can carry. So release the urge to compare. Lay down the weight of wondering when your moment will arrive. I have not withheld your portion, I've been shaping it with care. And when it comes, you won't want anyone else's. Because you'll see, finally and fully, that what I wrote for you was worth the wait. It was always enough. Because it was always you. This isn't a blessing floating in uncertainty, hoping to find someone to rest on. This isn't a random moment of favor looking for anyone willing to claim it. What's coming toward you right now, yes, even as you read this, is precise, targeted, sealed with purpose, and directed specifically to the name I placed upon your life. There will be no mistakes in delivery, no spiritual confusion, no misalignment. The breakthrough that is arriving is not going to pass you by. It was never meant for anyone else. I didn't design it generically. I didn't release it carelessly. I released it with the weight of my intent and the clarity of my appointment. The enemy tried to convince you that you missed your moment, that it went to someone more prepared, more holy, more visible. But I want you to understand this with urgency. What I send with your name on it cannot be intercepted, cannot be duplicated, cannot be redirected. I am not confused about who you are, and I am not confused about where this blessing belongs. Your name is not one of many, it is a singular command in heaven's records. When I speak over your life, I speak with intention. When I move on your behalf, I do so with precision. That's why you've been feeling pressure. That's why your atmosphere has shifted. That's why things are being rearranged rapidly around you. Because the manifestation has already begun moving in your direction. It's not waiting for you to be perfect, it's responding to the fact that you remain faithful. You endured the delay. You carried the weight of silence. You stood in rooms where nothing made sense and still refused to walk away. And that has reached me. I don't ignore persistence. I don't overlook endurance. Your tears were not wasted, they watered the soil this breakthrough is about to erupt from. And you won't have to fight for it. You won't have to beg for it. You won't have to compete for it. Because it knows your name. And when it reaches you, it will recognize the fire you've been through. It will understand the process that prepared you. It will fit your life with such accuracy that you'll know this could not have been for anyone else. You will feel the weight of it not as a burden, but as a confirmation. You will see the timing of it not as coincidence, but as divine orchestration. You'll experience the shift of it not as luck, but as fulfillment. Because this is not just any door opening, this is the door I kept closed until the day your name would activate the lock. And now, that day is upon you. There will be clarity, not confusion. There will be peace, not panic. There will be alignment, not striving. Because my hand is not sending what your heart cannot carry. I'm releasing what is ready to rest on your shoulders and not collapse you, but confirm you. This isn't just your season, it's your sentence, being fulfilled. What I spoke over you in secret is about to become the very reality you wake up in. And it won't resemble anything you've lost. It won't mimic what others have received. It will be yours, marked, matched, and manifested. So get ready, not with fear, but with faith. I am not uncertain about you. I have not forgotten the details. I have not delayed for amusement. I've waited until your name was in full alignment with the release. And now, the release is moving. Straight to the name I wrote on it. And that name is yours. You may not have realized it at the time, but every time the door didn't open, every time the opportunity slipped through your fingers, every time a connection faded or an offer fell apart, I wasn't denying your progress, I was preserving your placement. I saw what you couldn't see. I knew what waited on the other side of those tempting shortcuts, and I refused to let you walk into something that bore no trace of your calling. You wept over doors that would have only welcomed your insecurity, not your purpose. You pleaded for access into spaces that looked like favor on the outside but carried confusion underneath. And in my mercy, I didn't explain, I simply protected. I didn't let your name be inserted where it didn't belong. I didn't allow your presence to be wrapped in environments that would have suffocated your spirit and buried your voice. Because the door I have for you is not temporary, and it doesn't need manipulation to open. It's not waiting for you to prove yourself, it's waiting for the timing I appointed. I etched your name into the threshold of that place long before anyone knew what you carried. And until your character caught up to the weight of your destiny, I kept it sealed. I allowed others to walk ahead, not because they were better, but because your door is different. It doesn't mimic what's common. It doesn't cater to popularity. It was carved by my own hand with a key that only responds to your voice, your surrender, your obedience. That's why no matter how much you tried to force certain things to work, they would eventually collapse. Not because you lacked effort, but because I had something better that required your full attention. And now, the waiting is about to make sense. The pattern is about to become clear. The very places that refused you are going to watch me release something that was reserved for you all along. And you won't have to knock this time. You won't have to beg or break down barriers. Because the door that is opening now has already been unlocked by the consistency of your trust. It has your name not penciled, but engraved. Not loosely attached, but eternally assigned. And when you step into it, everything will align not because it's perfect, but because it was prepared. This is not an entry born out of pressure, it's the fulfillment of a promise I made before time began. I never needed you to chase opportunities, I needed you to stay ready for the right one. I never wanted you to exhaust yourself trying to fit into rooms where your soul felt compressed. I created a space that breathes when you enter. A space where your voice carries weight, not just volume. A space where your presence doesn't compete, it complements what I've already planted there. And yes, others may question how it opened. Let them wonder. Let them assume. You don't owe anyone an explanation for a door I designed. The ones that closed were not delays, they were detours away from destruction. And now, you'll walk through what was promised without apology. So lift your head, child. Don't mourn over what never materialized. What's ahead bears your name because I put it there, and no hand can remove what I have written. The door is ready. And now, so are you. There's been enough noise around you, voices of criticism, memories of failure, opinions that wounded, silence that confused, and in all of it, your soul has quietly wondered what I really think of you. So listen closely now, because I'm not shouting above the chaos, I'm whispering through it. Not because I'm far, but because I'm near, closer than the doubt in your chest, more present than the pain in your thoughts. I'm whispering your name not in anger, not in disappointment, but in a tone wrapped in affection. I am not rehearsing your mistakes, I am reminding you of who you are to me. When I say your name, I say it with joy, with longing, with certainty. I don't speak it as someone revisiting a broken file, I speak it as a father holding a masterpiece still unfolding. I am not whispering to condemn, I'm whispering to restore. You've heard too many loud declarations about what you're not. Too many lies dressed as truth have clung to your identity like chains. But my voice doesn't bind, it frees. And what I speak over you now will cut through the noise like light through fog. I call you mine. I call you chosen. I call you still becoming, not finished but favored. I whisper because you've grown tired of shouting matches with your fears. I whisper because I want you to lean in, to draw closer, to hear the sound of my affection vibrating within your weary bones. This is not the voice of performance-based love. This is not the echo of conditional grace. This is me, the one who shaped your soul, speaking your name like a song I never stopped singing. When others used your name to gossip, I used it in intercession. When others forgot it, I kept it on my lips. When you stopped saying it with pride, I still said it with promise. Your name, to me, is not attached to shame, it's connected to destiny. I know how often you've wondered if I'm still speaking, if I still care, if I've moved on to someone more worthy. But hear me again. I never stopped speaking your name. I whisper it in your low moments so you'll know I'm near. I say it when you wake and when you fall asleep, marking your days with reminders that you are not an accident on my timeline. You are a priority in my heart. And even when you feel undeserving of tenderness, I still pour it out. I still release peace with your name on it. I still cover you with mercy when the world labels you with criticism. You were never meant to live according to the volume of fear. You were meant to live according to the rhythm of my love. And that rhythm begins again with this whisper. I'm calling your name in a tone that heals, in a way that pulls you out of self-doubt and back into alignment with what I see. The world has spoken enough false definitions over you. And now, let me redefine everything. When I say your name, it doesn't trigger judgment, it releases promise. You are not forgotten, not forsaken, not too far. You are still called, still held, still known. You may have lost your sense of self, but I never lost sight of you. And now, I whisper your name again, not to summon shame, but to stir destiny. Let it sink into your spirit. I know your name better than you do. I crafted every syllable with care. I breathed meaning into every letter. And every time I speak it, creation still responds because what I say, I sustain. Let my whisper lead you out of the noise. Let it quiet the storm inside. Let it remind you that no matter what was said, what was lost, what was broken, what was doubted, your name has always sounded beautiful in my mouth. There has never been a moment in all of creation when I looked at you and saw an accident. You weren't born out of coincidence, nor shaped by randomness. Every detail of your existence has been authored with intention, your personality, your passions, your position in time. You were placed precisely, not as filler in the world, but as a living sentence in the narrative I have written to reveal my glory on the earth. And you need to understand this now, before another thought of inadequacy tries to take root. Your life was never supposed to blend in. You are not disposable. You are not some cosmic afterthought. You are a word I spoke on purpose. You are an assignment, not just in function, but in essence. I didn't just write something for you to do, I wrote something in you to be. That's why, when others didn't understand you, it wasn't because you were flawed, it was because they couldn't read the language I wrote you in. They tried to measure your value through standards I never agreed to. They tried to frame your purpose within their limits. But I designed you to break the mold, not to shrink inside it. You were assigned to a generation, to a timeline, to a region, to people who need what I encoded within you. That's why you carry such deep burdens for things others ignore. That's why certain pain cuts deeper for you, because you were born with divine sensitivity to areas I've called you to heal. That inner fire you've tried to suppress, that hunger for more that never dies, that sense that you were made for something beyond survival that's not pride or fantasy. That's your assignment breathing. And I know how many times you doubted it. I know how often you stood in front of the mirror and whispered questions you didn't want anyone to hear. Why me? Why now? Why this life? But here's the answer. Because I chose you. Because I appointed you. Because I took the eternal pen and wrote you into a divine story where your presence activates a chapter no one else can fulfill. If you were removed, the sentence would be incomplete. If your name was missing, the message would lack power. That's how important you are to what I'm doing. I could have placed you anywhere in history, but I chose now. I could have given your assignment to another, but I shaped you to carry it like no one else could. Every scar, every triumph, every delay, every season of confusion, it has all been woven together in the architecture of an assignment that hasn't even fully begun to unfold yet. And no, you haven't missed it. You haven't failed beyond redemption. You haven't drifted too far. The story isn't over, not even close. I'm still writing. I'm still turning pages. And your next chapter is not a rerun, it's an unveiling. You are about to see what I meant when I whispered to your spirit in the quiet moments that you were made for more. You are about to understand why the opposition was so relentless, because hell knew what heaven had written about you. And now, that written assignment is awakening. Your feet are about to step into what your heart has carried in secret. Not because it's deserved, but because it's ordained. So let go of the lie that says you're a mistake. Let go of the weight that says you're too broken to matter. Let go of the idea that your best days are behind you. I hold the ink. I hold the scroll. And your name is still on the next line. This is not a season where you need to keep second-guessing who you are to me. I am not asking you to live in the fog of uncertainty or to constantly wonder if you matter in my kingdom. You've wrestled long enough with questions that were never yours to carry, questions like, am I really called? Am I enough? Is this truly for me? And today I draw a line through all that confusion with one clear, irreversible truth. You are chosen. Not possibly, not maybe, not conditionally. Chosen, completely and deliberately, by me. I did not stumble upon you. I didn't settle on you as a last resort. I picked you on purpose, and I picked you before anyone had an opinion. Before the world began assigning labels, before fear ever wrapped itself around your voice, before failure had a chance to bruise your confidence, I had already marked you. You don't need to keep looking for signs. I am the sign. I am the confirmation. I am the voice that thundered into your spirit before you had the language to explain it. And now, I am confirming what you've quietly suspected but were afraid to believe. The calling is real. The appointment is authentic. The weight you felt is not imaginary, it's the pressure of promise waiting to be walked out. You've been circling the same questions, waiting for someone to affirm what I already spoke over you in secret. But the affirmation of man cannot carry the weight of divine choosing. If I have called you, no one else's approval is required. And I have. I didn't call the version of you you pretend to be, I called the real you, the broken and surrendered one. The one who kept going even when silence answered your prayers. The one who served with no spotlight. The one who forgave again and again, even when it cost your pride. You are not standing here by coincidence, you are standing here because I've led you here with fire and mercy. I've guided your feet through storms not to test you, but to prepare you. I've allowed seasons of hiddenness not to punish you, but to protect what I was building inside. And now the construction is complete. You are ready, not perfect, but positioned. You don't need another confirmation from the world to believe me. You don't need another closed door to validate that something else is coming. You need to hear me now. You are chosen. That longing in your heart, I placed it there. That burden for more, I stirred it. That hunger to rise even when everything else tells you to stay still, it's my breath calling you forward. So stop waiting for everyone else to see it. They didn't write your name into the story, I did. And I am now turning the page where the world will begin to see what I've known all along. This isn't about trying harder. This is about walking freer. You no longer need to guess whether you're included. You are not standing outside the gate hoping to be noticed. You are already inside, already selected, already carrying a yes from heaven that cannot be undone. The reason the enemy came after your identity so aggressively was because he feared you would discover this truth, that you are not just capable, you are appointed. You are not just interested, you are assigned. And no mistake in your past can undo what my hand has already sealed. Your questions can rest now. Your striving can cease. Your doubts can be laid down at my feet. I didn't bring you this far to confuse you, I brought you here to confirm you. The guessing season has expired. The choosing season has already begun. This moment is not a coincidence. This encounter isn't random, and this message didn't reach you by accident. I orchestrated every second of your journey to lead you here, not because I was late, but because I am exact. I knew when your heart would be ready. I knew when the noise would grow too loud for you to hear your own thoughts. I knew when the longing would rise in you to seek something more than what the world could offer. And so I waited, not out of hesitation, but because I wanted this message to arrive right on time, right when your soul would know it was meant just for you. The timing of heaven doesn't operate by your clock, it follows the rhythm of your readiness. And now, because the atmosphere has aligned, because your spirit has been prepared through fire and silence and unseen obedience, I've released this word to find you. Your name was printed on this appointment long before you knew how to pray for clarity. Before you felt the weight of destiny, I scheduled this moment into eternity. Before the battles began, I had already written the chapter where I'd remind you who you are and whose you are. This is more than encouragement, it is confirmation. You've walked through enough confusion to question whether I was still writing your story. You've endured enough quiet days to wonder if your page had been skipped. But here you were, reading words that touch wounds you didn't tell anyone about. And that is not random. That is intentional. That is me. I have never stopped speaking. I have never stopped watching. I have never stopped writing. But I needed you to reach this point not because I couldn't move earlier, but because the move I've planned needed the version of you that grew through the pressure. This isn't about what you've missed, it's about what you're about to receive. The delay wasn't denial. It was a countdown. And now the clock of heaven has struck your name. The message has arrived because the moment is here. I am not calling you to read and move on. I'm calling you to recognize that this is your invitation to step into what's been waiting for you all along. Everything in your life that didn't make sense is about to be reframed through the lens of this divine unveiling. You didn't lose your way, you were being led through unfamiliar terrain toward this very encounter. You didn't fall behind, you were being slowed down so you wouldn't miss what was scheduled to meet you now. The dreams, the whispers, the repeated confirmations you saw in passing, they were seeds for this hour. And this message is water to those seeds. You don't have to strive to believe it, you feel it resonating already, because your name is on it. You feel the stirring not because of emotion, but because your spirit recognizes the voice of the one who created it. I knew you would come looking for a sign. I knew the weight would grow unbearable if you didn't hear something soon. So I wrote this with your heart in mind. I wrapped my voice in words you could understand. And I timed it not with the chaos of the world, but with the stillness of my plan. Look around, not with your natural eyes, but with your faith. Everything is shifting. The message you're holding right now is not just insight. It is instruction. Do not ignore the timing. Do not dismiss the precision. I've aligned this word with the exact heartbeat of your need. And now that it has reached you, it carries power. It carries clarity. It carries the keys to the door you're about to walk through. So don't treat this as inspiration. Treat it as confirmation. Your name is the reason this moment exists. Your path is the reason I waited. And now, what I've spoken is activating. Right here. Right now. I know how often you've wondered if your moment passed, if the choices you made in weakness disqualified you, if the delay meant denial. I've watched the way you've rehearsed your regrets, playing back scenes you wish you could rewrite, convincing yourself that somehow you've stepped too far off course to ever get back to what I originally planned for you. But hear me clearly now, in the fullness of truth and mercy, you haven't missed it. Not the calling, not the blessing, not the season. What I designed for your life wasn't built on fragile foundations, it was rooted in my sovereignty. I don't draft promises that expire with your mistakes. I don't withdraw purpose because you took a detour. You may have wandered, but I never lost sight of you. You may have fallen, but I never stopped reaching. You may have doubted, but I never changed my mind. The assignment I authored is still active. The appointment I scheduled is still standing. You haven't ruined it. You haven't forfeited it. Because what I write is not subject to man's expiration dates or the enemy's interference. What I write carries eternal weight. And the ink I used to write your name into destiny was not weak, it was the ink of covenant, sealed with blood, upheld by my character, not your performance. I want you to breathe again. I want you to stop living as if all the doors have closed permanently. You've been walking like your opportunity came and went, like it belonged to a younger version of you, or a stronger version of you, or a version of you that didn't make the wrong turn. But the truth is, I already accounted for the turns. I already knew where you'd trip. I factored in your failures and still chose to call you anyway. That is not leniency, that is love. That is the depth of a Father who knew every chapter of your story before you lived the first one, and still said, "This one is mine." You have not run out of time. You are just now arriving at the moment where your awareness is catching up to my design. The promise hath been waiting for you, not drifting aimlessly, but protected, preserved, and held until your readiness collided with my release. And the time is now. You don't need to earn it. You don't need to relive the past trying to change it. You only need to receive that I am still committed to what I've declared over you. The enemy has tried to wear you down with lies, exhausting you with the illusion that too much has been lost. But nothing of eternal value slips from my grip. The purpose remains. The calling stands. And the restoration will be greater than the ruin. What you thought was lost forever is returning, not in fragments, but in fullness. Not by your striving, but by my Spirit. So let go of the shame that whispers it's too late. Release the guilt that tells you it's over. You haven't disqualified yourself. I've been qualifying you through the very pain you thought would bury you. This isn't a second chance, it's a continuation. This isn't starting over, it's picking up exactly where heaven left off. I never canceled the plan. I never tore the page. I've just been waiting for you to believe again that it's still yours. And now that you do, get ready. Because what's about to come forth isn't recycled, it's original. It bears your name because it never belonged to anyone else. You didn't miss it. You're walking into it. They may have walked away, but I didn't. They may have spoken against you, judged you without knowing the whole story, dismissed your presence, or closed doors in your face, but none of their rejection had the power to erase what I had already placed upon your life. What people misunderstood, I understood completely. What they called a failure, I called forming. What they discarded, I claimed. And even when their words cut deep, even when the sting of being passed over made you question your value, I was already moving in a different direction, not away from you, but around the obstacle. I never needed their approval to validate your assignment. I never waited for their agreement to anoint you. I saw your pain when their decisions wounded your identity, and instead of letting bitterness grow, I used it to anchor you deeper in me. Their no was never the final word, it was the starting point for my routing. You thought their rejection had the last say, but it only cleared space for something purer, something eternal, something that would not rely on human applause to survive. I don't consult opinions when I author purpose. I don't cancel names when people change their minds. My purpose is not fragile, it is fire-tested, storm-proof, and enemy-resistant. And your name is still written on it in bold, unshakable authority. I never paused your journey because they misunderstood your worth. I routed it so their mishandling would not damage your spirit. Sometimes I close rooms not because you aren't ready, but because they are unworthy of the treasure you carry. What I'm building through you requires space untainted by competition, ego, or confusion. You've been entrusted with something sacred, and I would rather redirect you into hiddenness than allow that oil to be spilled in a place that cannot honor it. But don't mistake the detour for disqualification. Your steps haven't been wasted, they've been divinely adjusted. Your setbacks weren't the end, they were transitions disguised as disappointments. And now, with each breath, you are drawing closer to the space that has been prepared not by hands but by heaven. I've been crafting encounters behind the scenes. I've been assembling the right hearts, the right doors, the right timing, and none of it requires you to recover from man's rejection to be activated. You don't need closure from them. You need alignment with me. And I say this with fierce love. Your name never left my intention. Even when you questioned yourself. Even when shame tried to speak louder than my promises. Even when you begged me to choose someone else because the weight felt too heavy, I kept your name in place. I didn't write it in pencil. I engraved it with purpose. And now, that purpose is starting to rise again, not because of restoration from them, but because of resurrection through me. To forgive who you need to forgive. Release what no longer fits. And trust that I've never let your story unravel. I've just been weaving it in a pattern they couldn't understand. What was rejected is now being reintroduced in glory. Not as a copy of who you were, but as the refined version I've been preparing all along. The path they closed was never meant to hold your destiny anyway. And now, the route I'm leading you through carries no trace of rejection, only redemption. You are not going back to prove anything. You are moving forward to fulfill everything. The world may not have seen it, but I did. And I never let go. The measure of who you are was never meant to be defined by your mistakes, your past, or the silence of people who didn't recognize your beauty. It was never tied to titles you didn't receive, achievements that passed you by, or accolades the world refused to give. I placed your worth in a realm that cannot be altered by temporary opinions or shaken by fluctuating seasons. Your name is not anchored in the ever-changing systems of this world. It is written where rust cannot decay, where storms cannot reach, where time holds no dominion. Your value exists in the eternal, where I dwell, where truth is absolute, where my word doesn't bend under pressure. I didn't assign you worth based on performance. I embedded it in you as identity. You were valuable the moment I breathed life into you, long before you accomplished anything, long before you proved anything, long before you understood anything. You didn't become worthy, you always were. The problem is not your value, it's your view. You've allowed the voices of doubt to grow louder than the voice of the one who created you. You've looked in mirrors cracked by comparison and let them convince you that something is missing. But I say this now with divine urgency: nothing is missing. You are not too little. You are not too late. You are not lost in the crowd. You are exactly as I intended, crafted with precision, infused with purpose, known by name. I placed your identity where it could never be auctioned to the highest bidder or stolen by the lies of the enemy. The value of your name is not tied to what you've gained, it is tied to what I've spoken. And I never speak in error. I never assign worth by accident. I want you to stop rehearsing the idea that you are not enough. A script was never written by me. I never told you to shrink. I never called you inadequate. I never said you had to become someone else in order to matter. That idea came from the pressure of culture, not the truth of covenant. Your name is written beside promises I still intend to fulfill. It is carved into the foundation of places I've prepared, into victories not yet seen, into impact that will stretch farther than your current vision allows. You are not small in my eyes. I don't see you through the lens of your weakness, I see you through the fullness of who I made you to be. And even now, in this moment, I am calling you to rise out of the false comfort of insecurity and into the boldness of belovedness. Your worth doesn't fluctuate based on how you feel, it stands firm in the realm where I am seated. You are not forgotten. You are not a number. You are not replaceable. I don't speak to crowds, I speak to names. And yours is on my lips. Yours is in my hands. Yours is in the story that will unfold whether others recognize it or not. So come out of the shadow of doubt. Come out of the narrative that tells you you're only as good as your last success. Your worth isn't stored in the applause of people, it's preserved in the unshakable reality that I made you in my image, and I do not make anything without value. I need you to believe this, not because it changes me, but because it will transform how you move forward. The next thing I'm about to do in your life requires you to stop questioning whether you deserve it. You do not because you earned it, but because I've already decided you're worth it. And when heaven decides, it's final. Your name is held in a place where eternity honors you, and that is more than enough. Every tear that fell, every betrayal you endured, every silent battle you fought behind closed doors wasn't wasted. What you went through wasn't the end of your story, it was the unveiling of the power I planted inside of you long before the suffering began. I never intended for pain to be your identity, but I allowed it to press against you so that what I placed in you would rise to the surface. You asked why it had to hurt so deeply, why the nights felt so long, why the losses came without warning. And I tell you now, because there are certain depths of calling that can only be discovered through the fire. The affliction did not subtract from your anointing, it activated it. The opposition wasn't a sign of abandonment, it was a proof of purpose. The enemy doesn't fight what he isn't afraid of. He came after you with such intensity because what you carry is dangerous to his agenda. But even in the middle of the agony, when you questioned if you were still called, I was guarding what I had already written about you. Your name didn't lose its place in my plan just because your heart was breaking. In fact, while others only saw your wounds, I saw your resilience. I saw you stand when everything tried to knock you down. I saw you speak life when your own lungs were full of sorrow. I saw you cling to hope when despair pressed hard. And that kind of endurance was never a weakness, it was a weapon. I allowed the shaking not to destroy your foundation, but to expose the strength I had built underneath. You're stronger now, not just emotionally, but spiritually. You've developed a capacity to hear my voice in ways you couldn't before. You've learned how to discern truth when lies surround you. You've discovered how to pray without words, how to hope in silence, how to believe without seeing. That is power the world cannot manufacture. That is depth religion cannot imitate. That is the kind of strength born from encounters, not explanations. And while others may have misread your journey, I never misunderstood your process. I was there in every valley. I was present when your voice trembled. I was near when you felt unrecognizable to yourself. And though it didn't feel like it, I was using every moment to sculpt the kind of vessel that could hold the weight of the glory I'm about to release through your life. You thought the pain would break you, but it only broke the parts of you that were never meant to remain. It purified you. It humbled you. It aligned you. And now, what you once saw as the graveyard of your dreams will become the birthplace of my promises. I will raise what you thought was buried. I will breathe into what felt empty. I will cause the very things that tried to destroy you to bow before the purpose I've preserved in you. This next season will be about survival, it will be about demonstration. I will use your story, not as a monument of brokenness, but as a declaration of redemption. You are not rising from pain as a shell of who you were, you are emerging with substance, wisdom, and a voice that carries authority because it has been refined in fire. You were not destroyed. You were revealed. And now the world will see what I've always seen in you. This is the season where your scars testify not of defeat but of destiny. I know what the calendar says. I see how the years have passed. I know how many times you've whispered to yourself, maybe I missed it, while watching others reach milestones that still feel out of reach for you. But I do not operate by earthly deadlines. I do not follow the ticking of man's clock to unfold what I've written about your life. You were never behind. You were never disqualified by time. You were never counted out because things didn't happen when you expected them to. I need you to understand this now with unwavering confidence. My timing is not late, it is perfect. It may not have come when you wanted, but it is arriving precisely when your spirit can carry the weight of it without breaking. If I would have opened certain doors before now, they would have crushed you. If I would have released what you asked for too soon, it would have overwhelmed you. I was not ignoring your prayers, I was building the foundation necessary to hold what you were praying for. Every delay was protecting the destiny, not punishing the dream. And now, that destiny is aligning with my appointed season. The heavens haven't forgotten your name. The promises I made haven't expired. The assignments I crafted for you haven't been reassigned. They are simply arriving according to the rhythm of eternity, not the rush of culture. I never asked you to compare your path to someone else's. I asked you to trust me even when it didn't make sense. Time is not your enemy, and age is not your ceiling. You are not too old. You are not too young. You are not too far behind. You are exactly where I need you to be in order to witness what I've prepared. I do not consult man-made timelines to decide when you're ready. I look at the heart. I look at the posture of surrender. I look at how you responded in seasons of silence. And I say again, you are on time. Because I am the one holding the pen, and I do not rush revelation. This moment you are walking into now has been ordained. It was hidden in the folds of eternity, waiting to unfold when your spirit was ready to carry its weight with grace and not ego. What's about to manifest in your life won't be late, it will be right. Right in intensity. Right in clarity. Write an impact. It will not be too soon and it will not be too small. It will arrive with the full force of everything I've been storing up, and it will fit like a key into a door made just for your name. Others may have reached their season faster, but their race isn't yours. I designed you for a different rhythm, and that rhythm is now accelerating not by force, but by fulfillment. So release the pressure to catch up. Let go of the guilt for not arriving earlier. There was nothing wrong with your pace. You weren't procrastinating, you were being prepared. And now, what once seemed delayed is about to overtake you. Opportunities will meet you without you having to chase them. Conversations will start where you least expect them. Purpose will bloom in places that once felt barren. You'll begin to see that nothing was wasted, not the time, not the detour, not the waiting. I saw it all. I managed it all. And I am now redeeming it all, not by resetting the clock, but by revealing how I've been weaving your moments into a masterpiece that only divine timing could produce. To walk forward with peace. Let the ticking of the world's clock fade beneath the sound of my voice declaring, now is the time. You are not too late. You are right on time. You've walked through a long stretch of silence where only you and I knew the weight of the calling on your life. While others saw the surface, I was speaking to the core of who you are quietly, intimately, consistently. In the unseen places, I've been giving you identity that no platform could offer, preparing you to carry a name that wasn't created by the world, but whispered by me. I called you by that name when you wept alone. I called you by that name when you wanted to give up. I called you by that name when your voice was ignored and your strength was failing. And now, the time has come where I will no longer just whisper it, I will declare it. Not because I need the world to know who you are, but because the assignment attached to your life must now come into full visibility. What was hidden for protection is now being revealed for purpose. I've been molding your character in silence so that your identity would not be hijacked by applause or corrupted by expectation. You were never being overlooked, you were being safeguarded. Because what I'm about to do in your life requires stability rooted in intimacy, not performance. That is why I whispered first. That is why I chose private confirmation before public announcement. I didn't want you to be dependent on external recognition to believe in what I placed inside you. And now, as I open this new door, your name will begin to be spoken by those who don't even know why they feel drawn to you. Opportunities will begin to mention you in rooms where you haven't even stepped yet. Assignments will begin to locate you by name, not because you pushed, but because I've spoken. I am not exalting you for vanity's sake, I am positioning you for impact. And the impact I'm releasing cannot be sustained by someone who doesn't know who they are. You do. You know now. You've walked long enough in the fire to be able to stand without needing to be celebrated. That's what makes this moment different. When I call your name this time, it won't break you, it will launch you. And those who tried to define you by your past won't be able to understand the present. But that's not your concern. You were never called for their understanding, you were called for my glory. You don't need to explain how you got here. The process you walked through already told the story. The nights you survived, the lessons you absorbed, the maturity you cultivated when no one was watching, these are the credentials I am endorsing. You have nothing to prove, just something to carry. I gave you that name because it aligns with a role only you can fill. And now, heaven's announcement is going public. Not for pride, not for applause, for purpose, for assignment, for the fulfillment of what was written before the world first spun on its axis. I didn't just name you, I positioned that name within the sequence of my unfolding will. And when I say it aloud, creation responds. Doors swing open. Resistance loses ground. Resources begin to align. Because the name I gave you carries my backing. It's not just identification, it's authorization. So they ready. Never vain, but ever fruit. I've value, I've fulfillment. I will use your name to introduce what I've placed inside you to the spaces that need it most. I will elevate not your ego, but your impact. And every time someone speaks it, it will carry the echo of my whisper. They will hear the name you've always had, the one they didn't see coming, the one I never stopped saying. And now, I will say it so loud the earth will have to make room for you. You've spent years underestimating what I handcrafted as your distinction. You've looked at parts of yourself the way you think, the way you feel deeply, the way you notice what others miss and labeled them as insignificant or even inconvenient. You've silenced your intuition, downplayed your voice, buried your instincts to fit into spaces that weren't even shaped for your presence. But I want you to see clearly now, what you've called just who I am is exactly what I anointed. That natural rhythm you carry, the way your spirit bends toward compassion, your persistence when others let go, your vision when others only see problems, none of it is accidental. You didn't acquire it randomly. It was planted. It was woven into your being when I first formed you. I didn't give you the ability to feel, speak, lead, think, or serve like anyone else because I never intended for you to duplicate what was already done. I intended you to deliver something new, something encoded with the fingerprint of your soul. That's why your life has never fit the formulas. That's why you've always had an ache to move differently, to build from a place others ignore, to reach people no one else notices. And I know, at times, it's made you feel out of place. But the truth is, you're not out of place. You were placed where you are to awaken something that can't survive an imitation. You've been chosen not for your ability to blend in, but for your courage to walk in what I've designed. Stop trying to mute what heaven has already endorsed. The tone in your voice, that rhythm in your words, that way your eyes see possibility in dry ground, it all carries an assignment. And what's more, it is your signature, the mark that authenticates that this is you moving in your lane, under my covering, by my direction. The anointing doesn't only rest on sermons or songs, it rests on who you are when you show up obediently, fully, without apology. What you've overlooked is too quiet, too weird, too soft, too intense, too slow, too sensitive. Those are the areas I want to pour through. Because I anoint the real. I anoint the yielded. I anoint the you that's been afraid to step out because you assumed being different meant being wrong. But I say this, your difference is what makes room for the change. I've never called you to replicate, I've called you to reveal. To reveal my heart in the way only you can. To reveal my kindness in how you treat the ones the world forgets. To reveal my wisdom in the way you solve what others skip over. You don't have to become louder or faster or bolder than who you are. You only have to become honest. Honest about what you carry. Honest about the fact that your identity is not flawed, it's formatted by me. And now, what once seemed too subtle will become the very doorway for influence. I will begin to highlight what you thought was hidden. I will amplify what you thought was too small. I will send people to draw from the well you've been afraid to uncover. Because your anointing isn't coming, it's already here. It's been breathing beneath the surface of every moment you were just being yourself. And now, I'm showing you how powerful that actually is. You don't need a platform to prove it. You don't need a title to validate it. You just need to walk like someone whose name was spoken with intention and crafted with detail. I see the fullness of your design. I see the layers you tried to tuck away. And I call them beautiful. I call them useful. I call them chosen. What you've been treating as ordinary is holy. What you've labeled plain is prophetic. And now, as you begin to stand in it boldly, you will realize that you never needed to try to be anyone else. You only needed to be completely you, the version I anointed from the beginning. There is a threshold in front of you that was not built by human hands. It was not assembled by chance or coincidence. It wasn't added later or made to fit someone else and then repurposed for you. No, this door was designed for you before you ever took your first breath. Every bolt, every hinge, every dimension of this opening has been crafted to respond to one thing: your name. And not the version of your name filtered through fear or insecurity, not the name that tried to fit into molds of approval or acceptance, but the name I gave you. The name that matches your identity in the spirit. The name that was written in my scrolls before your feet ever touched the ground. This door has waited not because it wasn't ready, but because you were still walking toward the awareness of who you really are. I never rush openings. I don't allow access based on emotion or timing dictated by pressure. I open what is appointed, and I do it in alignment with your maturity, your healing, and your readiness to carry what's on the other side. The reason this door didn't respond earlier is not because it was rejecting you, it was reserved for your true identity to arrive. You had to shed some false names first. The names life tried to place on you: rejected, unworthy, overlooked, second best. Those names had to fall off before this door could react, because the lock only recognizes what I wrote. And now, the version of you that I've been shaping through the fire, through the silence, through the pruning, this version carries the authority to unlock what's been waiting. You won't have to force it open. You won't have to beg for entry. The door will respond, not to effort, but to alignment. You're not entering because of your works, you're entering because you finally see yourself the way I always have. And that revelation carries power. That recognition carries a sound. When you move forward in that truth, the atmosphere shifts. The delay breaks. The opening appears. It's not a coincidence that opportunities are beginning to knock now. It's not strange that favor is circling back where you once heard no. What was inaccessible before is about to become undeniable, not because it changed, but because you've stepped into your true identity. This door doesn't lead to more striving, it leads to assignment. It leads to manifestation. It leads to demonstration. I have placed people, provision, and purpose behind this door, all ready to respond the moment your name, your real name, arrives at the threshold. And it's arriving now. Heaven has cleared the way. The resistance that once blocked you has no jurisdiction anymore, because I have spoken a new level of release over your life. What couldn't recognize you before now sees you clearly. What didn't respond before now bows to the authority of my word flowing through you. So walk forward, not in hesitation, not in fear, not in apology. Walk forward in agreement with me. You don't need to knock. You only need to step. You don't need to explain. You only need to obey. The door was not created to hold you back, it was created to open at the sound of your identity aligning with heaven. And now, that alignment is happening. The lock is disengaging. The seal is breaking. The space I designed for you beyond that threshold is about to become your new reality. You're not forcing it. You're fulfilling it. You're not chasing it. You're carrying it. And as you step through, you'll realize this door never led to possibility, it led to prophecy. And that prophecy had your name on it from the beginning. Fear has tried to settle near the edges of your progress, whispering doubts as you prepare to step forward, reminding you of past failures and what-ifs, questioning whether you're truly ready, worthy, or strong enough to carry what I've placed before you. But today I want you to understand something heaven has always known about you. Your name is not just familiar to me, it is registered in authority. When I call your name, it doesn't echo powerlessly into space. It resonates with weight. It moves things. And when you walk in alignment with my will, that name doesn't just signify identity, it activates influence. You don't carry ordinary access. You carry delegated dominion. Not from titles or platforms, but from the throne of grace itself. When you stand where I've placed you, when you speak what I've given you, when you obey what I've shown you, even in trembling I surround you with a covering that darkness cannot penetrate. You are not stepping forward empty-handed. You are stepping with heaven's endorsement. And that authority isn't pride, it's positioning. It's the mark of someone sent, not someone who wandered. It's the confirmation that you don't have to convince rooms to respect you when I've already written your authority into the assignment. This is why the attacks increased when you got closer to obedience. Because the enemy isn't just afraid of you discovering your calling, he's terrified of you walking in it boldly. He knows that once you stop hesitating, once you stop second-guessing what I've given you, once you stop shrinking in the name of false humility and finally start stepping in the confidence of being chosen, hell's grip begins to break. Chains fall not just from you, but from those assigned to your voice. Regions shift. Atmospheres respond. Generational curses tremble because one obedient life, walking in the full realization of heaven's authority, can undo decades of bondage. That's what your name carries when it is submitted to my will. You may feel small, but when you obey, you speak with the backing of eternity. You may feel inadequate, but I have already filled the gaps with grace. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead is breathing through your obedience. This is not about feelings, it's about function. When I gave you your name, I didn't only speak identity, I released access. I opened doors that would only recognize you. I assigned weight to your voice that no one else could duplicate. So do not fear what's ahead. Do not fear the weight of responsibility. Do not fear stepping into rooms where your credentials are questioned. I will speak for you. I will move through you. I will cover you with a confidence that doesn't come from applause, but from assurance. You are not walking alone, you are walking with my backing, with my blood, with my name over yours. And that makes all the difference. You won't have to fight for your space, I've already cleared it. You won't have to prove your value, I've already established it. You won't have to battle fear alone, I've already crushed it under your feet. Your authority is not a feeling, it is a fact. It is the result of my choosing, my timing, my Spirit working in and through you. You don't need to feel brave, you need to trust me. Because your courage isn't found in volume, it's found in obedience. When you move where I send you, even if your knees shake, your name speaks louder than your fear. And when your name is aligned with my purpose, it carries weight that silence cannot erase. So walk forward, child. Not with arrogance, but with anointed assurance. You are not hoping you will be accepted, you are walking in the confidence that I've already approved you. Your name carries authority. Because I gave it. Because I sealed it. Because I am with you, and that is more than enough. I need you to know that the space between my promise and your breakthrough was never an accident. While it may have looked like silence from your perspective, from mine it was construction. Behind the curtain of your waiting, I was assembling something that would not only match your calling, but protect your legacy. You mistook my preparation for pause. You assumed the stillness meant the plan had stalled, but in truth, it was evolving. It was gathering strength in the unseen. Every piece was being shaped to fit the exact imprint of your assignment. I wasn't just working on what would happen around you, I was designing something that would respond to your very presence, something that would activate the moment you entered it. And yes, others may have advanced before you. Others may have celebrated while you kept sacrificing. But hear me, what they built was temporary, what I'm about to release in your life carries the weight of eternity. This wasn't a delay. This was a divine blueprint being fulfilled brick by brick, with your name engraved into every foundation stone. I wasn't simply opening a door, I was building a dwelling, a space that would house not only your gifts, but your growth. A place that wouldn't just elevate you but expand you. And it had to take time. Because what I'm giving you cannot be rushed, duplicated, or stolen. It was authored with such precision that if I had released it before the appointed time, it would have collapsed under pressure. But now the construction is near complete. Now the final touches are aligning with your obedience. Now the atmosphere is charged with manifestation. And you will see how none of it was random. Every closed chapter, every quiet season, every battle that left you wondering if I had forgotten you, it was part of the development process. It was me keeping you in alignment so that what I built would not be missed when it arrived. Others may think it's coming out of nowhere, but you'll know better. You'll know it came out of every prayer you whispered in the dark, out of every seed sown in silence, out of every act of faith that cost you your comfort. This unfolding is not about luck, it's about loyalty. Yours to me, mine to you. I honored every tear you never let fall in public. I remembered every yes you gave when no would have been easier. And now I'm responding. Not casually, not halfway, but completely, thoroughly, faithfully. You won't walk into this season wondering if it's really for you. You'll feel the resonance in your spirit before your feet even cross the threshold. It will echo everything I whispered to you in secret. You belong here. This was made for you. You will walk into a moment that has your name stitched into its design, and nothing and no one will be able to take credit for it. They'll see the outcome, but they won't know the cost. They'll witness the breakthrough, but they won't understand the breaking that birthed it. And that's okay. Because you didn't endure to be understood, you endured to see fulfillment. And fulfillment is what's approaching. No more wondering if you missed it. No more rehearsing your regrets. What I've planned is not based on your perfection, but on my promise. And I don't change my mind once I've written your name into something. It's still coming. It's still yours. It's still on time. So breathe, child. Lift your eyes. Dust off your hope. I was not denying you. I was developing something for you that your heart couldn't even dream of. And it's ready now. Amen.